Hey, what's up? It's the Field with Preston Hiefield. Thank you all so much for listening, liking, and subscribing on YouTube, Substack, Apple, and Spotify. First pod coming up since essentially the Natty and Natty reaction. Really got a chance to take a deep breath and just have the last week off, but we're back because Darian Mensah is in Miami. We will go inside the Prime 112 dinner that took place with Cristobal, Shannon Dawson, Malachi Toney, Edgerrin James reportedly. Shout out to The Athletic for the great reporting. Was at the steakhouse along with Darian Mensah and one of Duke's star receivers who is also now committed to Miami. Got a lot of questions. I've read a bunch of articles, done some research on the NIL deals, and I want to just discuss how in the world he actually ended up at Miami despite being under contract at Duke for another season. Also, the 2026 Big Ten college football schedule release went down earlier this week. We will break it down. Giannis and the Trailblazers. It's tough to say that sentence without laughing. Heard some local Portland sports talk radio going in on that topic, and it was comedic yet inspiring. So I'll give my 2 cents on Giannis and the Blazers and why I don't think it would be a good fit for the Blazers. Not that Giannis isn't one of the very best players in the world, obviously, but I just the timing, the fit, everything seems a little weird. They would throw a parade down Broadway if Giannis even signed with the Blazers, let alone won a single playoff series. And finally, a brief word about Novak Djokovic as he stuns Jannik Sinner in the Aussie Open semis in Melbourne. All that coming up right now. Okay, let's go inside the Prime 112 dinner that landed Darian Mensah in Miami. Shout out to The Athletic for this wonderful reporting. Man, if you're a Prime 112 like waiter or busser or really anyone obviously affiliated with the restaurant, I kind of wonder if you have to sign like an NDA to be like, yeah, you won't talk about or text or tweet or Instagram. You won't share anything about anyone you saw tonight. You won't talk about how Mario Cristobal was whining and dining Duke's quarterback to try to get him here with Edgerrin James. This from The Athletic. Really, really good reporting. Darian Mensah and Cooper Barcati, who's Miami's, now Miami's, Duke's top receiver last year, had over 1,100 yards. They committed to Miami after going to dinner at Prime 112 in Miami with a group that included head coach Mario Cristobal, offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson, Pro Football Hall of Famer Edgerrin James, and star receiver Malachi Toney. So I just want to get into the unprecedented nature of the Darian Mensah situation. So for further context and background, again, reporting here from ESPN and The Athletic, he signed a 2-year NIL contract with Duke. 2. He was at Tulane his freshman year, 2023 and 2024, played a lot at Tulane, played well. Last year he went to Duke, 34 touchdowns, 6 picks, 3,900 passing yards, second in the country. That is tremendous at Duke. They won 7 games before the ACC title game, and then they beat Virginia, and then they beat Arizona State in the bowl game, so they ended up winning 9 games, but they were a 7-5 team, and I know you can kind of laugh at that. I think you could certainly criticize Sorsby for being 7-9 at Cincinnati and getting this big deal. Mensah was just electric last year, despite his team not being very good. Sorsby, I'm out on. Mensah, I'm all in on. I think he's that special. However, let's get to the legal nature behind all of this, okay? So he signed a 2-year deal with Duke, and then as Miami is playing in the national title game, he enters the transfer portal on January 21st. By the way, the transfer portal window is January 2nd through the 16th. I have a hunch, again, the reporting in The Athletic and ESPN says, quote, he entered the transfer portal on January 21st. I have a hard time believing that. I think he may have been in on the 16th as that's legally the last day. However, there's another clause. This stuff's all crazy. Because Miami played in the Natty, they actually get an extension on getting to get players in and out of the transfer portal, and their players can also leave in the transfer portal because of the Natty not occurring until, January 19th or January 20th. So there is an extension because for the 2 teams who played in the Natty, which that game occurred after the portal window, quote-unquote, closed, January 2nd through the 16th. Okay, so That would be the loophole that Miami could exploit here with regards to Mensah. However, the real conversation that I want to have, and I'm a little bit confused on, is how he got out of a multi-year NIL deal. So I'm just going to read verbatim this report from The Athletic, just a couple paragraphs here. Okay. Mensah announces his intentions to enter the transfer portal on January 16th, the last day of the portal window. The decision came as a surprise less than a month after Mensah announced a return to Duke for the 2026 season. He was a second-team All-ACC honoree in 2025, Blue Devils' first outright conference championship since 1962. Shout out. Mensah initially transferred from Tulane to Duke ahead of the 2025 season, signing a multi-year NIL deal worth more than $3 million annually. ESPN Max Olson has reported that the second year of this NIL deal is worth up to $4 million. Okay, so that's ESPN's Max Olson, who's their portal guru, reporting that his deal with Duke for this upcoming season is worth up to $4 million. Last week, Duke filed suit against Mensah in the Superior Court in Durham County, seeking to prevent Mensah from transferring, while the university pursued arbitration over a revenue-sharing contract through 2026, which included exclusive rights to Mensah's NIL with respect to higher education and football. A judge granted Duke's temporary restraining order, momentarily preventing Mensah from enrolling and playing football for another school. However, the judge also ruled Duke could not prevent Mensah from entering the portal, which he did on January 21st. Again, that sentence right there is why none of these rules seem to really matter, because we all thought the transfer portal window was January 2nd through the 16th. Mensah and his attorneys took that to court, and then the judge ruled that he was allowed to enter the transfer portal on January 21st, which completely disagrees with the current laws of the transfer portal. So there you go. All you need to do is get a judge to grant the motion, basically. Okay. Eventually, both parties filed a joint motion to end the case and dismiss the temporary restraining order that prevented Mensah from changing schools. The court filing said the agreement was confidential. Okay. So, I want to just finish. Even with the settlement, the case exposed holes in the system, from contracts without clear exit clauses to the possibility of one school preventing a non-employee from enrolling at another. And I guess just finally, let's see if I can find it here. There's a bunch of language from the attorneys about how Mensah violated Duke's attorneys, how Mensah is violating the laws of his NIL contract. Ultimately, there was a confidential settlement. That's what I really want to basically say. There was a confidential settlement. So, to me, what that means is that Miami paid at least $4 million, probably more, to Duke because his deal was worth $4 million. So they had to buy him out of his deal for Duke to get their money back, or the money that they were going to pay him. And then they probably certainly had to pay expensive attorney's fees and maybe a fine or something. And then, remember how Ty Simpson was reportedly offered $6.5 million to go to Miami? They probably offered him $5-6 million. So all in, Miami might have paid $10 million to get this kid. We don't know for sure, but that's certainly not a bad estimate. Because why would he leave for less money? If he was going to make $4 million, they probably said $6.5. And then there's probably a bunch of other incentives: free car, free house to live while you're on campus, etc. That's the background on it. That's the legal language. That is what happened. It was settled in court. It's confidential. Miami probably had to buy him out of his contract. So we get to this. How is that a contract? If you sign a 2-year NIL contract that's paying you $3 or $4 million a year, but halfway through it, you're just like, I'm good, I'm leaving. I'm taking it to court and I'm leaving. How is that really a contract? And why is everyone just allowed to do this? In the NFL, you can't just take your contract to court and be like, I'm good and in free agency, and now I'm going to be a free agent, and now I'm going to go to the Indianapolis Colts or now I'm going to leave the Indianapolis Colts and go to the Buffalo Bills. You can't, you literally legally can't do that, much as there's rules in place where teams in the NFL legally can't interview coaches until after the season is over. These are NFL rules. There's no real rules or punishments here that I'm aware of. Like it's really bad for Mensah in Miami, no doubt, but they're not really getting punished. Like, I thought that's why this whole CSC, College Sports Commission, was instituted in the first place, to deal with people violating their NIL rules and revenue sharing and contracts. That's like the entire... I did a whole segment on this with the Dabo story, as he called out Ole Miss, rightly so, and he brought receipts. Like, the entire point of the College Sports Commission, apparently, was to be the enforcement arm for all of the NIL contracts, the revenue sharing, etc., because the NCAA and the House vs. NCAA settlement, after they had to pay out billions of dollars to current and former players, they said, all right, fine, you want to do that? Part of the terms of this agreement is we're no longer in charge of enforcing anything with regards to revenue sharing or pay for play or NIL, because every time we try to enforce anything, we just get sued, which is very smart by the NCAA. Like, what are we doing here? Why is Darian Mensah allowed to just leave a contract that he signed? And it seems like money prevailed. Like, Miami was just like, all right, we're going to just buy him out of his contract. We'll pay all the attorney's fees, and then we'll pay him a fat NIL sum to come here. I don't know who Miami has as their booster. Seems like they got a lot of rich dudes down there willing to throw $10 million at a quarterback from Duke, see if it sticks. It's just, and by the way, his receiver, who I'm sure wasn't cheap, probably $2 million or so, $1 million to $2 million. Like, this is just something needs to be done, man. I guess it's just I feel for Duke. I feel for Mensah's teammates at Duke. I mean, if you're signing contracts and getting paid, you're an employee, and then you just can violate that contract and leave elsewhere. I mean, that's not... I guess what I'm getting at is, if these kids are going to get treated, and he just turned 21, if these kids are going to get treated like, I guess, pros, but way better than pros, because they don't have to follow their contracts, you should be able to cut them at any time. You should be able to bench them at any time. Like, if Dante Moore is really bad again next year when it matters most for Oregon, as he was most of this season, Oregon should be able to bench him for Dylan Raiola. Like, why not? Like, if I'm Dan, I am absolutely benching Dante Moore next year if he's bad again. Like, he was really bad in almost every big game they had this year outside of the Penn State game. Just bench him next year. You got Dylan Raiola. Like, if these kids, if Dante's going to make $5 million next year, you should be able to bench him for poor performance. I don't know, man. It's like this Darian Mensah story. I'm not trying to be negative, but it's just kind of everything that's wrong with college football. Like, he was signed and was under contract, and after the portal window, the normal portal window, January 2nd through the 16th, closed, he just entered because someone from Miami, I'm sure, texted him or called him, however Cristobal wants to do it. Either Cristobal himself DMs him, probably has a bad guy. Like, it's usually like the assistant director of personnel, like not the director of personnel, not the GM, like kind of one of their top assistants is the bad guy who texts people. And I'm sure that's what happened. That's what happened here. So yeah, it's nuts, man. It's absolutely nuts. I don't understand how it's legal. I don't understand why it's legal. And if you can just not honor a contract, I guess you should just be able to get cut at any time as well. Like if Mensah, there's no way he will because he's really special. But if he plays terribly next year for the first month, I don't think Miami has a good backup that I'm aware of. But it's like Oregon's a great case study because they have a great backup in Dylan Raiola. Like if Dante Moore plays terrible next month, do you just bench him and not honor his contract and cut him? I mean, probably not because that sets a bad precedent for your recruiting. But for the actual season and the actual game on the actual football field, it'd probably be much better if Dylan Raiola played. It's something to think about. It just is because right now the kids have all the power. And I'm of course all for student athletes getting paid. Did many projects on this a decade ago in journalism school, pounding the table that student athletes should absolutely be paid. But this isn't being paid. This is being bought. This isn't being paid. There's free agency all the time, and we're gonna buy you. And the kid's not smart enough to say no. Like, I don't even blame the kids here. Like, how can you? Like, they're not gonna say no. When you get offered $6 or $7 million instead of $4 million, but there's no rules in place there's no like legal structured NFL style rules in place right now. And this is the most high profile example of that is a star quarterback who was under contract after the transfer portal period ended, still got plucked and left his school because it was up to attorneys. And to me, that says the College Sports Commission, the CSC, that enforcement arm essentially doesn't exist, because otherwise they would have been the ones in the courtroom making the decision. That team of attorneys would have been, and not an attorney in Durham County. Okay, let's do a Big Ten schedule breakdown. The 2026 college football season, 8 months away, something like that. And the Big Ten earlier this week released the schedules for all 18 members of the Big Ten. I have Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, Michigan, and Penn State schedules all pulled up here. I'm just going to rattle through some and give you guys some thoughts. Ohio State, first of all, has 3 of the best games in all of college football next year. Ohio State at Texas, September 12th. Ohio State at Indiana, defending national champion Indiana to you, October 17th. Obviously a rematch of the Big Ten title game this year that Indiana won. Halloween weekend, they're at USC. I don't have that as one of my 3 great games because I think they'll probably blow USC out. But the next week, they host Oregon after going to USC for Halloween weekend. So it's actually a tough schedule for Ohio State. I honestly thought their schedule this regular season was largely a joke other than the Texas game. But this next season, man, I mean, they start with Ball State, and then they also have Kent State in there. However, at Texas, Illinois, at Iowa, at Indiana, at USC, Oregon, Michigan, like those are all tough games, especially at Texas, at Indiana, and home against Oregon, and who knows, maybe at Iowa. Maybe Iowa plays great football. It is October 3rd, so shouldn't be like a snowy or sleety game, but it's always a tough place to play. Kinnick, no doubt about it. So Ohio State, man, tough schedule. Honestly, really tough schedule next year. They've had real cakewalks in years past, certainly this year outside of the Texas game, but next year, not a cakewalk for the Buckeyes. Indiana, this non-conference schedule is a joke. Now, there's a lot of teams that have a joke of a non-conference schedule. Penn State does as well. But North Texas, Howard, and Western Kentucky, that's Indiana's non-con schedule. They did that this year, by the way, and SIG does that very intentionally. They have a really, really, really insanely easy, like FCS-style non-con. I know North Texas was good this year. Give me a break. Shout out to Eric Morris and Drew Mestamaker going to Oklahoma State. Who else they have? Indiana has Ohio State at home October 17th and then at Michigan the next week, October 24th. So I'm going to pretty much guarantee you they're going to be 6-0 going into that Ohio State game. North Texas, Howard, Western Kentucky, Northwestern at home. All those games. You don't even have to watch Indiana's first month of the season. Just going to throw that out there right now. They'll be 4-0. Then they're at Rutgers, 5-0. At Nebraska, 6-0. And then they host Ohio State, and then at Michigan. Decent teams down the stretch too. Minnesota, USC, at Washington. They end it with Purdue, the old Oak and Bucket game. That'll be a win there in all likelihood. But pretty easy, pretty manageable schedule for the Hoosiers, but they do have Ohio State and Michigan in the middle of the schedule. And again, USC and at UW late November 21st. Who knows? Maybe Damon Williams improves, and they're a solid to good team. They had a really good defense this year. Their offense just wasn't there. But if Damon Williams gets better, UW at UW November 21st, that could be a challenging game for sure. Oregon, Boise State is who they open up with. Remember, in years past, I mean, Boise State last year, playoff team, Ashton Genty, amazing program. Obviously, they've had some amazing historic wins over the years. Boise State kind of had Oregon's number for a while there. Beat them in 08 at Autzen and 09 in Boise. I was there. So, they almost beat Oregon at Autzen last year, too. I mean, Genty ran wild, and Oregon was not playing that well, but eventually Dylan Gabriel in the offense figured it out, and Boise State barely lost at Oregon. Oregon also got 2 special teams touchdowns that game. I remember that, a punt return and a kick return. So Boise State, I don't know what they'll have next year, but it's never an automatic win against Boise State, ever. It's never an automatic win. Oftentimes they are very, very, very good. At Oklahoma State, again, when you schedule this, that's a really good program. Recently, they've obviously really fallen off, but new head coach Eric Morris, Drew Mestemaker, new QB, saw those guys in person in Denton this year. Really, really awesome passing game. Mestemaker's a great story, walk on from Austin, and now he's making $4 or $5 million to be Oklahoma State's quarterback. So that's a good story. That's a really good passing offense. It'll be an interesting challenge to deal with. Portland State 19th. Shout out to whoever Portland State's new football coach is, as Barnum is. Barnum's finally gone. Man, it was a fun ride. It was a fun ride with Barnum. At USC, September 26th. Not an easy game on the road at USC. UCLA, Nebraska, at Illinois, Northwestern, and then the November, so Oregon will host Northwestern Halloween weekend, and then the November schedules, pretty tough. At Ohio State, November 7th. Next week, home against Michigan. Next week, at Michigan State. And then the week after that, UW at home. And again, Michigan State, new head coach. It's Pat Fitzgerald, right? Pat Fitz. Yep. That guy's the real deal. I was banging the drum for Pat Fitz to get hired by Penn State and others, and he was obviously wronged, proven in a court of law. He was wronged by Northwestern and that terrible leadership there for Northwestern University, which has since cleared house, by the way. It's the former Oregon president, Michael Schill, I think was his name. Wonder what that guy's up to these days. Quick Google, Michael Schill. Just former president of Northwestern until he resigned in 2005. I can't believe what a disaster of a leader. I mean, truly a disaster of a leader. I'm really glad that Pat Fitz was vindicated in a court of law. Shout out to Pat Fitz, man. Great guy, great coach. He's going to do a spectacular job for Michigan State. That is no longer an easy win now that Jonathan Smith is out of there. And then UW at home. I mean, that's a really tough November, man. At Ohio State, Michigan, at Michigan State, UW at home. That is not an easy November at all for Oregon. I think, is it a challenging schedule? Yeah. Is it a really hard schedule? No. I mean, dude, one big picture, step out, 30,000-foot macro view of all these schedules is that I get the Big Ten's won the last 3 national titles. They've deserved to. They have had the 3 best teams the last 3 years, at least in the postseason for Ohio State. Certainly not the regular season, but the postseason, and then certainly Michigan and Indiana were the best teams in college football when they won it. But the depth, man, is so much better in the SEC. It still is. If you look at, I'll just pull up Oklahoma's schedule this year. And let's see what it is for this upcoming season. Okay, this is Oklahoma for this upcoming season. UTEP at Michigan, New Mexico, at Georgia, Texas. So 3 of their first 5 games are at Michigan, at Georgia, Texas. The hell? I mean, dude, that depth is just different. Obviously, Michigan, Big Ten team, non-con, but you get the point. Got an easier part of the SEC next. Kentucky, Mississippi State, South Carolina. But then they are at Florida, home against Ole Miss, home against A&M, at Missouri. Dude, that's a pretty damn tough schedule. Way tougher than the average Big Ten schedule. This was their schedule this year. Michigan, they had Auburn, Texas, at South Carolina, Ole Miss, at Tennessee, at Alabama, Missouri, LSU, Alabama. That's tough, man. Here's Penn State's schedule for this upcoming season. Marshall, Temple, Buffalo, Wisconsin, Northwestern. Those are your first 5 games. Then you get USC, good, not great. USC, at Michigan, again this year, good, not great. Purdue, UW, Minnesota, Rutgers, Maryland. Like, that is a very easy schedule for Penn State. Marshall, Temple, Buffalo, Wisconsin, at Northwestern, USC, at Michigan, Purdue, at UW, Minnesota, Rutgers, at Maryland. I mean, at Michigan, obviously, never an easy place to play. At UW, never an easy place to play. Solid team, solid defense. Both those programs really solid defenses. But that's a very manageable schedule, man. I mean, that's a very manageable schedule. And then let's go to Michigan's. Western Michigan, hosting Oklahoma, UTEP, Iowa, at Minnesota, Penn State, Indiana, at Rutgers, Michigan State, at Oregon, UCLA, at Ohio State. That's pretty tough, man. Oklahoma, college football playoff team. Iowa, really solid team. Penn State, you never know, probably could be really solid. Indiana, national champions. Oregon, Final Four. Ohio State, playoff team. Like that, those are 6 pretty tough games if you're Michigan. And Kyle Whittingham, old Coach Witt. But I actually don't think it's inconceivable that they win their first, that they beat Western Michigan, Oklahoma, UTEP, Iowa, Minnesota, Penn State. So they could potentially start 6-0. Then they have Indiana at home. That's a great game, by the way. Indiana at Michigan, October 24th. Weather starts to get a little tough, maybe. Michigan, maybe finds its footing a little bit more offensively. They were rookies on offense this year. Don't even blame Bryce Underwood. It's really tough to be a good true freshman QB. Really, really tough. So don't blame him at all for the poor year on offense for Michigan. Obviously, his coach was a mess as well. But now that they have Whittingham in there and more stability at the head coach spot, and he's got a year of experience under his belt, like, Michigan could pull off an upset against Indiana on October 24th. Why not? I mean, they won't be favored to, but they could. At Rutgers, Michigan State, at Oregon, obviously really challenging game, November 14th at Autzen, UCLA at home, and then at Ohio State. Like, pretty challenging schedule there if you're Michigan. I don't know. I guess my big picture takeaways for the Big Ten is that I think Ohio State's got a really challenging schedule when you factor in at Texas, at Iowa, at Indiana, at USC, Oregon, and Michigan. I think those are all games they can lose. At Texas, at Iowa, at Indiana, at USC, Oregon, Michigan. 6 games they could lose. I think you could take out USC and Michigan and maybe Iowa, but those are at least 3 extremely good games. At Texas, at Indiana, and home against Oregon. November 7th. Dude, November 7th is a potentially extremely electric day in college football. Let me see if they have that up. Nah, they don't have that up yet on ESPN. But I saw a tweet about November 7th. Let me pull it up. 7th, 2026. Okay. We have Oregon at Ohio State, Miami at Notre Dame, Alabama at LSU, Georgia at Ole Miss, BYU at Utah. That's November 7th. I mean, talk about a potentially electric day in college football. So, I don't know, man. I guess big picture takeaways. Ohio State's got a really hard schedule. Oregon's got a pretty tough schedule, but manageable. I mean, Boise, Oklahoma State, and Portland State, man, that's a pretty good non-con. You shouldn't lose any of those, but at the same time, it'll have your attention other than Portland State, all due respect. And then at USC right away on the road in the Big Ten. You're at Illinois. You're home for Halloween weekend, Northwestern. Should be a big win there. But then the next week you're at Ohio State. You got Michigan, at Michigan State, Washington. I mean, it's a challenging schedule, but not an impossible one if you're Oregon. Again, Penn State schedule, kind of a joke. Indiana's non-con, total joke. They do have Ohio State and at Michigan. Again, Indiana does not play Oregon next year, but they do have Ohio State and at Michigan, USC, at UW. Indiana's schedule sets up really nicely. I mean, to host Ohio State, I mean, do they play? There's a chance that Ohio State is the only ranked team they play next year. North Texas, Howard, Western Kentucky, Northwestern, Rutgers, Nebraska, and then Ohio State, at Michigan, Minnesota, USC, at UW, Purdue. Like Michigan, USC, UW, that's kind of your third tier, I would say, of the Big Ten. Second, third tier. I'd say second tier would be Michigan. Third tier would be USC, UW. There's a chance those teams are top 25 teams. There's also a chance they're unranked. So Indiana's schedule sets up pretty nicely. Again, for the big games for Oregon, I mean, they're all big. Boise State, at Oklahoma State, I'm fired up for those. But at USC, September 26th. At Ohio State, November 7th. Michigan at home, November 14th. Michigan Wolverines coming to Austin again. That'll be a blast. November 14th. At Michigan State, November 21st. And UW, November 28th. So, anyways, just wanted to give you guys kind of an overview of the Big Ten schedule, and there it is. Okay, moving on to the NBA. Is Giannis the missing piece in Rip City? That's next on local radio. Or is Drew Timme the missing piece in Rip City? That's next on radio. Those are pretty good teases. Like, if you're listening to the Portland radio, you're tuning the volume up a little bit, being like, hey, is Drew Timme the missing piece? Maybe. But both of those teases are hilarious and satirical for the record, in case that wasn't obvious. Now, I was listening to some Portland Sports Talk radio the other day, and I heard, like, dude, Blazers got to go get Giannis, man. This is the trade package. This is what it's going to take, and why not take a swing? What else are we going to do? And I was just going, I can't imagine being like I'm obviously very locked into the Portland sports scene. I can't imagine, like, beaming in from, like, who's the comparable city to Portland in the NBA market and franchise valuation? Like, Orlando or Atlanta, like, I mean, bigger cities, but, like, like, same relevance. Like, I mean, Atlanta's probably more relevant than Portland, given the Trae Young Knicks series over the last 5 years. But you know what I mean? Like, imagine if you were in Atlanta and for some reason you beamed into Portland radio and they were like, dude, we got to go get Giannis. We got to go get Giannis. I would be like, what? Same thing with like, if I beamed into Atlanta sports talk and the guys are like, dude, you know what? I think we got Giannis. I think we do it. So there's just, like, obviously he's one of the 3 best players in the world, in the opinion of some, the best player in the world. He's certainly a proven guy who can be the best player on a championship team. He's great. He'll be a Hall of Famer, still in his prime, 30 or 31. But if you're Portland, man, like, my take on that would be, like, if someone asked me, like, do you think the Blazers should pursue Giannis? Like, not really. And I don't mean for this to be, like, a hot take like, at all. Like, I really genuinely don't. Like, I'm just talking, just having a conversation. Everyone take a deep breath. This is just a conversation. This isn't a take that you need to put on my tombstone or that everyone should be thinking deeply about. Like, it's just a conversation here. I wouldn't go after Giannis if I was Portland, because, I mean, dude, you have to think about, like, when you're constructing your roster, like, you have to think about it in terms of, like, championship windows, right? Most of Portland's team, outside of Jeremy Grant and Drew Holiday and Dame, who's obviously not playing this year, they're under 25. Like, Shaden, Scoot, 21, 22, Denny Avdia, 23-ish. Like, they're all very young players. Donovan Clingan, 21-ish, 22. Like, they're all very, very... Tumani Kamara, under 25. All these guys are really young players. And, first of all, Giannis, never in a million years would he put with his trade request... And all these guys usually end up going where they want to go. Never in a million years would Giannis put, like, trade me to the Portland Trailblazers, especially as constructed. Maybe 2012 to 2020, where Dame was really cooking in the three-point ball. Not every team had caught up to the three-point revolution, but Dame and CJ were certainly upper echelon three-point shooters and threats. And you add Seth Curry to the mix, and you make the conference finals in 19. Like, Dame Lillard was an absolute problem from 2012 to 2020. The guy was downright incredible. So like, that era, Portland, like, absolutely swing for the fences and add Giannis, like, of course. But now, as you're rebuilding your roster and you're trying to construct it for a championship window at some point in time, that's why the Jeremy Grant thing, and I get it, they signed him to try to entice Dame to stay and make Dame happy a couple of years ago. But his space, 5 years, $160 million, whatever it was, as a 30-year-old, like, he just makes no sense with the team from a timeline standpoint right now. He's just kind of out there shooting around, like the most low-stress $30 million job in the history of the world, basically. It's like, hey, just go out there and try to get 20 for us. We're not really trying to win. We kind of are, but, like, we don't have any real expectations of winning even a playoff game. Like, just go out there, Jeremy. Like, that is sick. That is a sick $30 million a year job. I love what Drew Holiday, like, love what Drew Holiday's added to the team this year in terms of, I know he's been in and out of the lineup, but when he's in terms of just defense, leadership, I think that's one thing we all really love about Portland this year is they're actually finally playing defense. As fun as the Lillard era was, and it was extremely, extremely fun, you were never going to mistake Portland as a good defensive team under Terry Stotts and Dame Lillard, and again, it worked. They got to the conference finals. They played very well. They won some playoff series. Like, that's the route they had to go, but after a while, especially kind of at the end, it was really annoying watching them just not play any defense at all. And now it's a team that tries really hard on defense and has great defensive players like Toumani Camara with great length and Drew Holiday and a big man in Donovan Clingan who's a really, really, really solid young big man. And, obviously Denny Avdia is the story of the team. Like the splits with and without Denny are wild and dramatic. Like he is an all-star player. He is a great player. How they have him on contract for like $13 million a year for the next 2 years is mind-blowing. He's going to get a lot of money in like 2 years from now. He is a great player. So, but my point is, obviously, Giannis wouldn't want to come to Portland. Like, if Shams dropped something on the ESPN tracker that was like breaking news, Giannis Antetokounmpo lists his preferred trade destination as Portland, I would fall out of my chair. I would fall out of my chair as if my head was sewn to the carpet. Like, the only time I think I've ever fallen out of my chair watching anything related to the Blazers, probably two things. Number one, seeing that we got the number one overall draft pick and taking Greg Oden. Shout out to 07. Oden 08, worth the wait, though. Oden 08, worth the wait. And then probably the Dame shot against Paul George to knock OKC out, send him packing in Portland. Like, those are the two times I've pretty much ever fallen out of my chair. Obviously, I remember the Lakers-Blazers series very early in my life, 20-something years ago, as well. I remember crying that night. I think that was the last time I cried about a sporting event. That or maybe when Allen Iverson lost in the finals. But so the point is, like, dude, if you're Portland, I mean, like, I get people being like, what are you going to do? Just, like, not do anything? Dude, not doing anything is kind of the point. Like, do you think the Clippers are happy that they did something about bringing Paul George in? Of course not. Like, what a total train wreck and disaster. He's already off the team, and they gave up SGA and 1 million first-round picks, arguably the worst trade in NBA history, as we all know. Like, so if you're Portland, you don't want to give up, and I don't know what the trade packages are. You can look up a Zach Lowe article for that if you really want to. I'm sure he's got stuff about how the Heat and the Knicks and the T-Wolves and the Warriors could do it. Seems like those are the big four teams that everyone's talking about, because those are all contenders, although the Heat really aren't. But those are potential contenders that he would be happy with, and. So, he's obviously not coming to Portland, but, like, if you're Joe Cronin, like, why would you even try? Not just because Giannis doesn't want to come to Portland. That's certainly a massive reason. Like, don't bring in a superstar who doesn't want to be there. That's a quick way to losing a lot of assets and being unhappy, and everyone loses. So definitely don't do it for that reason. But also from, like, a pure basketball reason, when you're talking about constructing your team long term, like, you want to build with your young core, man. You don't want to force Giannis, who has 3 more years of prime, maybe, when you're not really a championship team. Like, if Giannis was on Portland right now, are they a championship contender? I mean, they'd be a really annoying team to play. They'd be a really tough out, especially if Denny Avdia plays at this level and Giannis plays at his amazing level. and Drew Holiday, keeps adding kind of the veteran winning style of basketball that he does. But I don't know if it's a title contender. Like, anyways, I wouldn't waste. And my point is to get Giannis, you have to think about what you're gonna have to give up to get him. So you would have to give up just to like match money. You would have to give up, and they would probably want Denny Avdia and Jeremy Grant and 5 first-round draft picks and maybe Scoot Henderson. Like, you're not gonna do that, dude. Like, you're just not gonna do that. So, again, I wouldn't mortgage my future for Giannis right now if I was the Blazers. Now, if you're the Warriors and you want to give Steph one final shot at a ring, if you are the T-Wolves and you're like, holy crap, Ant Edwards, let's get him some help around him. If you're the Knicks and you can find a way to bring him in, Giannis playing at the Garden would just be freaking electric, man. With him and Brunson, and he might want to stay in the East anyway. It's obviously a bit easier to win over there at the moment. So, I don't know. If I'm Portland, that's my point. It's like, obviously I would love Giannis. I would love Giannis. Like, I would absolutely love Giannis. He's one of the very best players in the world. Of course, he's capable of turning most teams into a title contending team. But it doesn't match what Portland wants to do long term at all, with almost all of their great players being 25 and under, and then again Jeremy and Drew kind of floating at weird times in their careers in terms of not really matching the timeline with what the Blazers currently have right now. I've been very pleasantly surprised with the Blazers this year. Denny Avdia has been unbelievable. Tiago Splitter, I think you probably make him the full-time head coach if they make the playoffs. I mean, they're over 500 or right around it and have been for quite some time. So if they keep playing like high-quality competitive basketball with Denny Avdia out there, there's no reason why, I guess you shouldn't give Splitter a strong consideration. But, I wouldn't trade. The overall point is I wouldn't trade for Giannis, not because I don't respect Giannis, not because I don't think he's one of the very best players in the world. He certainly is. It's just that it doesn't really match up with the championship window. Like, I think if you're Portland, your best move going forward is you continue to obviously this is an amazing draft. It's almost a bummer that this draft is unbelievable. It's almost a bummer that you're good again. You kind of want to be tanking. Like, I heard Windhorse say on one of the shows that we're gonna see some historic tanking down the stretch. We probably will, because there's not just one good player. There's dude, I've been watching a little bit of college basketball lately. There are 7 insanely good freshmen. The kid from Illinois, Wagler, who's getting no love. I saw him 18th or so in a lot of mocks. Dude, he just dropped 46 at Purdue the other day. Kid's unbelievable. He's averaging 20-something a game on high 40s from 3. The kid is an unbelievable scorer. And then obviously you have your notable guys like DeBonsa from BYU and the UNC kid and the Kansas kid. You got a lot of notable guys out there right now. So anyways, it's gonna be a great draft. Gonna be a really, really, really good rookie class. Flag Knipple was unbelievable. I didn't watch it live. I watched a lot of the highlights, but that looked incredible. But anyways, man, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at on Portland. Should the Blazers pursue Giannis is such a funny question. That question, holy Portland sports radio, man. Holy Portland sports radio. Should Giannis go to Portland, or should the Blazers pursue Giannis? Said no one ever outside of Oregon. That is an all-time, that's getting people to turn the volume up. That's getting people on the edge of their seat. That is A+ sports radio right there. Should the Blazers pursue Giannis, or should Giannis come to Portland? And my answer would be no. And again, it's has nothing to do with the quality of Giannis, more so about how I want to see Portland build moving forward. Okay, and finally, just a word on Novak Djokovic and tennis. So, woke up this morning, and the Novak match was still on. Novak and Sinner, second semifinal at the Aussie Open. It was set to start at 3:30 a.m. I watched the first 2 sets of Alcaraz and Zverev, 6-4, 7-6 Alcaraz. That ended up going to a 5th set that Alcaraz won, but he lost the tiebreakers 7-6, 7-6 in the 3rd and 4th set. I thought it was over after the 2nd set, and it was also midnight where I'm at in Austin, Texas. So I was like, oh man, all right, I guess I'll go to bed and wake up in the morning and see that Alcaraz won in straight sets or maybe 4, and then see who he's playing. Probably Sinner over Novak. But oh no, Novak beats Sinner in 5 sets. And his fitness is just insane at age 38 to be doing this. I have so many thoughts on this match. The first is that I'm so happy for tennis and for Novak, but really for tennis and like my own entertainment, I guess selfishly, that he's in the final, because I'm kind of tired of these Alcaraz Sinner finals. Not that I don't like, they're both great players. They are head and shoulders above everyone on tour, or so we thought. They've won. I went back and looked at the Slam history just to double check. They have won the last 8 majors, Sinner and Alcaraz. No one else has won a major in the last 8 majors. The last non-Sinner or Alcaraz player to win a major was Novak, the 2023 U.S. Open. Beat Medvedev to avenge that 21 loss when he almost had that golden calendar slam. 21, Aussie, French, Wimbledon, all for Novak. Almost won it at the U.S. Open. Almost had the golden calendar slam and then lost it to Medvedev. And then Medvedev freaked out, and it was weird. And anyways, I haven't seen a ton of Medvedev since, although I know he's been in some finals. Still a great player. Really kind of interesting course of his career. Really looked like he was going to be maybe the guy, and then Sinner and Alcaraz have raised their level way above. But I'm excited, man, because I'm excited for Carlos and Novak, because that's just an epic collision, as it was in Wimbledon, where you have arguably the GOAT, Novak, most slams all time, 24. Rafa's got 22. Fed's got 20. They've all won it in different ways. Whenever anyone asks about the GOAT conversation, I always say Federer is the Wimbledon GOAT. Novak is the Aussie GOAT. Rafa's obviously the French GOAT. Rafa with 14 of his 22 slams at the French Open. They've named a court after him, literally. It's a completely mind-blowing effort from Rafa in Paris. Completely mind-blowing effort from Novak in the Aussie Open, and same with Roger at Wimbledon, obviously. And that was one part. One element that I was thinking is like, dude, Novak is so damn comfortable at the Aussie Open because it's his GOAT territory. It's his Wimbledon for Federer. It's his French Open for Rafa. Like, he is the Aussie Open GOAT. 10 titles, most all time there. Like, this is his GOAT territory. However, he did get admittedly a bit fortunate. He was kind of getting steamrolled by Musetti. Lost the first 2 sets in the quarterfinal round, and then Musetti pulled out with a groin injury. Round before that, 4th round, his opponent completely pulled out, didn't play the match at all. So entering the semifinal, Novak had played 2 sets of tennis in like, what would that be, like 6 days or 5 days, like his last 2 rounds. So a bit of a fortunate rest break there, but nonetheless, I mean, and I gotta admit, this was happening in the middle of the night, so I didn't watch the full match, but just the fitness from Novak is what I always come back to. Like, I remember very early in his career, I think it was a gluten problem or some kind of dietary problem that he had. He was pulling out of matches and like collapsing and throwing up and getting sick and like fainting, and it's like, I don't know if people remember that. I mean, we're talking early on, like very early on in his career, like 16 years ago, but he was having real issues getting through matches. And then he's gone on this insane diet. I know everyone wants to do needle emoji. He's gone on this insane diet, and maybe needle emoji, and these mystery drinks. It's funny when like you see the video of like his crew handing him like a water bottle with like something pink in it in the middle of the match, and you're going, what was that? Did anyone else see that? What is going on there? What is in that? And it's really funny because those videos are out there of his crew like handing him some like mystery water bottle with like some pink substance in it. That's it's beside the point. It's really exciting, man. It's really good for men's tennis that someone other than Sinner and Alcaraz have a chance to win the title, because I was thinking, like, what excites me about men's tennis these days? Obviously, we lived in a totally golden era for 20 years there with Roger and Rafa and Novak. And by the way, big shout out to Andy Roddick, who was a contender for about a decade there, and even won a slam. Played Roger in the, 2009, 2010 Wimbledon final, and won a U.S. Open. Won more points than Roger did at that Wimbledon final, just didn't actually win the match. Some all-time stuff from Roddick for about a decade there, too. We really miss Andy Roddick. And so what I was thinking is, like, what fires me up about the men's tour these days. And like I've seen Alcaraz in person at Indian Wells. Like I love the guy's game. His strength for being so young. He's getting older now and is like 22, but his strength at 18 was insane. I think Sinner's just consistency and power is great. And Novak's fitness is just on another planet, man. I think it's his diet. I think it's his discipline. It's everything. But like you see these guys, this is what happens in majors is these guys start to cramp up. Like the non-big three they could play 3 or 4 great sets, and then if it went to a 5th set, your money was always on one of the big three because you knew their fitness was insane, their mental was insane, and that's always what it's been with Novak. I think it's either Andy Roddick or John McEnroe. Is it John Isner? One of the American commentators. I think it's Andy Roddick, I think. He has the line that he tweets out, and he says, "First he takes your legs." And that's always been the line with Roddick with regards to Novak, because he just takes your legs, and then he takes your will, and then he strangles you, and you lose. Like his defense is insane. You don't know where to go. Like Rafa's talked about it on Roddick's podcast. Like with Roger, the game plan was to go to his backhand. With Novak, the game plan was just like play your best and hope for the best. And that's a testament to Novak and his fitness. Like, dude, he doesn't cramp up rarely. He's just always like to be this fit at 38 against Sinner in his prime, even ascending into his prime. Sinner's not even fully in his prime yet. I think he's still 23. Let me look that up. He's 24. He's 24, turned 24 in August. So, regardless, he's ascending into his prime, and he's still that young. And for Novak to outlast him, man, that fitness is just insane. So huge hat tip to Novak, and I'm stoked for the finals because I think the two things that really get me to a TV set these days are someone other than Sinner or Alcaraz playing in a final. I mean, listen, I'll always watch all the slams and Miami and Indian Wells. We'll always watch all of them. But what really gets me excited about them is an American man balling out, or someone outside of Sinner or Alcaraz looking like they have a real chance. And right now, Ben Shelton certainly gets me to a TV set. I think that's the most entertaining American to watch. Maybe has the best chance of an American man to win a slam right now, especially come Wimbledon or the U.S. Open when his serve can play an even bigger role. And then it's Novak, dude. Getting Novak into a final, that is must see TV. Like, can he do it at 38? Can he win his historic 25th Grand Slam title? He has 24 already, most all-time. Again, Rafa 22, Roger 20. Can he get to 25? Can he win his 11th Aussie Open? Like, that's absolute cinema. And then doing it against a guy who, you don't want to put this kind of pressure on the guy. And I love the way Alcaraz carries himself. It's very clear that he's got such a great team around him, great head on his shoulders. He's not nervous about his legacy. Like, I love that. I think maybe Rafa's rubbed off on him in a super positive way. Like, he's not comparing himself to a GOAT, obviously, yet, or like talking about himself as a guy who can be a GOAT. He's just doing his best and let the chips fall where they may. I love that Alcaraz isn't concerned about his legacy. It'd obviously probably be impossible to think like, yeah, man, let me get to 20 majors like Federer. Like, I can't imagine even like thinking that. I guess you probably just work really hard and look up 20 years later and see where you're at. But anyways, point is, like, you can tell there's a very healthy relationship between all these guys, and I think a lot of that has to do with Roger's mentality and then Rafa's mentality. There's very high-quality sportsman-like respect that the big three have for each other, and that's bled into this new generation with Sinner and with Carlos, and now you got the two generations squaring off, Carlos and Novak, and the Aussie Open final, man. Can't wait. All right, thank you guys all so much for listening to this podcast, and we will see you next time.